Emergencies are unpredictable, but you don't have to be unprepared. Peak Alerts sends you targeted emergency alerts in real time for the places that matter to you most, so you know what's happening and what to do next. Know first, act fast. That's the power of Peak Alerts.
Hey there, crew. We have what is going to be a historical weather situation tomorrow as the local National Weather Service office in Pueblo has issued its first ever particularly dangerous situation red flag warning. In weather circles, we call that a PDS, red flag warning. They have used that tag or that differentiation for a number of years for tornado warnings, and I want to say for severe thunderstorm warnings too, although I'm not 100% sure on that. But they'll add that tag to tornado warnings when there is a confirmed violent, damaging tornado that is on the ground. So the idea with this, in this age where so many of us get so much information thrown at us on a daily and hourly basis, the point of the PDS to say, hey, this one is different from other warnings. And so I want to go over that. I have made a request to have somebody from the National Weather Service try to join me here on this, obviously spinning it up here pretty quick this afternoon, but I will walk you through it the best I can. And so there is a red flag warning for all of southern Colorado, in fact, all of eastern Colorado on Wednesday. And you see those areas here highlighted. It includes the upper Arkansas River Valley. It includes Fremont County, Park County, the San Luis Valley, Wet Mountains, Sangre de Cristos, up and down the interstate, out across the plains. And that is in effect for southern Colorado until midnight tomorrow night. It goes into effect, I think last time I checked was 10 o'clock in the morning. And yes, that's when they start it. And it lasts later than they normally do. Usually you see these things typically expire an hour or two after the sun goes down, because usually what happens is that the atmosphere starts to calm down after the boundary layer expands and the atmosphere mixes up and the temperatures start to drop and the humidity comes up. That isn't necessarily going to happen tomorrow. So not everyone is under the PDS, or the particularly dangerous situation red flag warning. Specifically, it is for the San Luis Valley and for the southern foothills, the Sangre de Cristos, the Wet Mountain Valley. I want to say the Wet Mountains are in this, and it does include the Walsenburg and Trinidad area. Now, these PDS red flag warnings are so new that my weather system doesn't have a way for me to differentiate that between the non-PDS red flag warning. So there's an upgrade that needs to happen. So I've kind of just sort of highlighted the area. This is why the PDS red flag warning. Here are the criteria that the National Weather Service uses. For the San Luis Valley and for the plains, it's wind 55 miles per hour or greater and relative humidity level of 9% or lower. That is different from the regular red flag warning criteria, which I do have those up here and I can show you. And over the mountain areas, it's for wind 45 miles per hour or greater and for relative humidity levels of 9% or lower. A normal red flag warning uses criteria that are not as extreme. A normal red flag warning is for wind 25 miles per hour or greater and for relative humidity 15% or lower. So you see again here, the idea is this is on the extreme side of things for both the relative humidity and the wind. Now, on top of the red flag warning, there is a high wind warning that has been issued for the northern half of the San Luis Valley that is in effect from 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Wednesday. And that should be kind of the sort of window of strongest wind gusts, if you will, and that's probably where they are going to be the strongest. So that just shows you the Weather Service having confidence of those stronger wind gusts helping to lead to that particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning. So let's start talking some of the specifics. Okay. And I'm going to show you how everything is going to evolve, or the what we would call, from a scientific term, the morphology of the wind during the day tomorrow. As we wake up, we will start to see the wind picking up and maybe the beginnings of some gusts along the eastern slopes of the Sangres, the Wets, and the southern foothills. But it is during the morning tomorrow, as we start to warm up the atmosphere, the jet comes in from the northwest. We take the boundary layer of the atmosphere, it expands, we turn the atmosphere over in a process we call mixing, and you see the wind gusts come up. Now here's from 11:30 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I've been showing you this model for the last few days, and I've been saying that I think it's been underdoing it. And this is one of the better models at it, actually. And I have actually hand edited the model here. I've added 14% to what the model was showing, which wasn't enough, but there are some parts on the far eastern plains I don't want it to be much higher than what I have out there. However, the reason the model isn't picking up on the strength of the gusts correctly is because I think it's not mixing the atmosphere up to a high enough level. If it was doing that, I think it'd be transporting some of that momentum down to the surface. What momentum am I talking about? Check this out. You see this area of low pressure coming our way here. It's spinning off the coast of California. We've been talking about that for a few days. There is a strong jet streak that is rounding the base of that, and it's that strong jet streak that is going to move into southern Colorado tomorrow. In fact, I'll show that movement to you here. We'll take you from right now into the future. And by tomorrow afternoon, when we are at the peak of mixing, again, to a depth that is probably up around 20,000 feet, and you see where that jet is kind of located here. Now, if you orient yourself with how the wind flows, and I'm going to put that on here for you. The wind kind of follows these black lines, and this is at about 18,000 feet in the atmosphere, what I'm showing you here. So that's kind of the direction of flow, okay? So orient yourself that way. Then, if you take what we call the major and minor axis of the jet streak, and I'm going to put those on here for you. So I know we're doing like science here today, but this matters tomorrow, and why this particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning, has been issued. So this is what we would call the major axis right there. So kind of splitting it lengthwise. The minor axis would be splitting this jet streak kind of in half from front to back. Okay. So this area here, up on the front of it, and I'm going to change the color so you can see this better. Up in the front here, this is called the right exit quadrant. So if we split this jet streak into 4 quadrants, this is an area of sinking air. The other thing that's happening is this jet streak is oriented perpendicular to the orientation of the Sangre de Cristos and the Wet Mountains. Both of those things, in fact, everything that I've talked about already, points to stronger wind aloft associated with that jet streak coming down to the surface tomorrow. There's also developing pressure gradients at the surface as we get the dry line to develop across far eastern Colorado. And I already showed you that actually, but I'm going to come back to it here. So I'm going to take you from the afternoon, where I stopped the clock at about 1 o'clock. Notice how the wind over southern Colorado is out of the southwest. See how over western Kansas the wind is more out of the south? Well, where that flow kind of meets is the developing dry line tomorrow. And some thunderstorms are going to develop on the east side of the dry line. And so that's what you saw here between 1 and 5 o'clock. Watch this again. It's kind of cool to see because the computer model is picking up on the outflow from the thunderstorm. So watch this again. Here's 110. Look at just to the west of Scott City, Kansas, and you'll see the wind picks up there and there's some flow back toward Colorado. Isn't that cool? That's the outflow from the storms helping to kind of enhance the convergence along that dry line tomorrow. We are on the west side of the dry line, the dry side of the dry line. And remember that criteria for the PDS red flag warning? You see the humidity levels in the single digits? That's one of the reasons that the San Luis Valley and the southern foothills and mountains have the PDS red flag warning, because those are also the areas where we expect the strongest wind gusts that will be over 45 miles per hour for the mountain areas and the potential for over 55 miles per hour in the San Luis Valley. Now, in this chat I'm in with the Weather Service earlier today, the question was posed about why is the threshold for wind actually lighter in the mountains than across the lower elevations. And that's because the humidity level in the mountains is usually higher because the temperature is not as warm as the lower elevations. And so if they kept that 50 mile per hour threshold, the amount of times that the 55 mile per hour threshold is met over the mountains with the humidity in the single digits is so infrequent that that would never happen. So they went back when they decided these thresholds. They looked at data, they looked at fires and kind of figured out what the thresholds were that they should actually add or have for these PDS red flag warnings. And so that's kind of our situation tomorrow. Does that kind of make sense? I hope it does. It's historical, so I thought I'd come on here and talk about it with you. Now, on the east side of that dry line, that's where there's low-level moisture. You saw that wind coming up from the south, and that's where you actually have tomorrow afternoon the potential for thunderstorms, and a couple of those might actually be strong. You see those here at 4 o'clock. They've gone up already, and then they move off to the east. The outflow from those may push the dry line back into eastern Colorado a little bit. I'm not so sure this would happen, but we'll keep an eye on the potential for some additional thunderstorm development, maybe over our far eastern counties. So I can't guarantee that that will happen, but it's something that we'll watch. So, okay. We've got a few of you here that are checking in, and Tony says we are turning into a desert. I mean, it's, we've had more red flag warnings in the last 10 to 15 years than the previous 10 to 15 years for sure. And Joe says, oh, it's the Dust Bowl days. It might feel like that tomorrow. There could be some areas of blowing dust. Jessica says, I have to drive from Trinidad to Denver tomorrow morning. I think tomorrow morning is going to be a heck of a lot better than the late morning and afternoon, Jessica. So I think for the most part, you'll be okay. You will experience some west wind, though, as I showed you, as you are kind of hitting, let's say, Colorado City southward, and you start kind of driving up past Stem Beach. You start driving up in elevation on I-25 and starting to hit those areas. So here's a look at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning as we specifically answer your question here. Notice how we're starting to get flow coming down the slopes. You'll deal with that, but it's not the stronger gusts that we'll have later in the day. So I think you'll be okay. Jack says, thanks. I will be taking the clunker to work the next 2 days. Hope it makes it. Not that I'll be in the fun stuff, but why chance it? Makes sense to me. And Jeff says, yeah, you know me, meteorology background, but don't work in weather. Have only ever heard of PDS used for tornado or severe thunderstorm. So yes, indeed, this is historical. Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to come on here and I wanted to do that. So my friends at the Weather Service are working on jumping on with me, and I greatly appreciate them doing that. And they may be in the middle of a tech check right now, but I'm going to hop on and we'll kind of do this in real time. It's live, so that's perfectly okay. And so I am going to bring in now Clint from the National Weather Service, who is joining us here this afternoon. Clint, my man, you are the warning coordination meteorologist. Kind of a historic day for the Pueblo National Weather Service.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the first time in, I guess, WFO Pueblo history that we've issued a PDS, particularly dangerous situation, red flag warning. The zones covered are the upper Arkansas River Valley. You've got Lake and Chaffee County. You got the San Luis Valley, our friends down there. And then we've got Zone 225, which includes a lot of our major mountains and the Wet Mountain Valley here in southern Colorado.
Okay, so let's go over that again, because I'll admit, like off the top of my head, I don't have the zones that you guys used memorized as good for the fire weather stuff as I do for just, the normal products that you guys put out. So it does include all the way up here, and I'm going to put this on. You can look at this with me here, Clint. So all the way down the upper Arkansas River Valley?
Yeah, so you've got Lake and Chaffee County, that's where Leadville, and then Buena Vista, Salida, and then you keep going further down south. So you start getting into Saguache County, and then you go into Rio Grande County, and then you just get the eastern portion of Conejos. You've got Alamosa County, of course, and then Castilla County there, and then it goes all the way. And the way that we have it with Zone 225 as well, you've got the higher parts of Los Animas, Huerfano, all of Custer County, and just a little bit of Pueblo County there. And for this particular event, we did not include Fremont County because it was on a fringe, and the puzzle pieces weren't quite lining up.
Okay, so that's about it right there that I highlighted in blue. Okay, so I talked about this a little bit before you came on with me, and I'd like you to go over it again about the difference in criteria from a typical red flag warning. And I'm going to put the typical red flag warning stuff up while you are talking about it, and how the PDS is different.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is just the wind speeds and the relative humidity. So we've always got this wonderful graphic there that talks about the base, but for a height day with the PD, relative humidity at 09, relative wind speeds need to be there's two different ways. So for the lower elevations, it's kind of weird to think about the San Luis Valley being a lower elevation, but that lower elevation needs to be at 55 miles an hour. And then even for the Eastern Plains, that needs to be for 55 miles an hour. But in the higher elevations, it needs to be 45 miles an hour. We do that mainly because it's quite difficult to get relative humidity values in the higher elevations to be below 9% or equal to that. And then also the vegetation, it's trees, 45 miles an hour there. Spots and spreads wildfire pretty easily.
Let's talk a little bit about, if you don't mind, the process that you guys used, because you looked at a lot of historical data in coming up with this specific criteria for a PDS warning. It wasn't something that was willy-nilly. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, we had some of our forecasters here, not just going to name off people, but we have really good forecasters who do wonderful work, but they did a climatological study about how frequent these kinds of conditions can be met. So we used a 25-year climatology using our main climatic sites. And we have 6 climatic sites around our forecasting responsibility. But using that, we found the thresholds that would get us to roughly about 2 to 4 year occurrences for these PDS. So very rare, not a normal red flag warning day. And this lines up fairly well, exactly with the WFO Boulder to our north.
Okay, so the idea, if someone is just joining here and you know, they're hearing, okay, hey, Matt's doing this thing. It's historical. It's the first one. It's meant to perk people's ears up a little bit more because we have had a number of red flag warnings that have been issued already this year. Okay, I think I'm losing Clint there.
Yeah, we've had,
Go ahead.
and it's a little bit slow right now, so I apologize
It's
if
okay.
there's any overlap with what I'm saying to you, what you're saying. But yes, we in Southern Colorado get, oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a delay. I apologize. I don't know.
Bad internet connection.
It's okay. We'll see if he's going to jump in one more time. You know, I've run into this from the Pueblo Weather Service office before. There's something that they're, you know, it's a government system there. It doesn't like necessarily what I'm doing, but you got the gist of it there, right? That this is meant to be an extra heads up that the weather conditions are on the extreme sort of end of things. So it is from all the way up in the upper Arkansas River headwaters, down through Salida, and then the San Luis Valley, the Sangre de Cristos, the Wet Mountain Valley, the western half, let's say, of Huerfano County, the higher terrain there, and the western half of Los Animas County. So this is a situation that, you know, I want to come on here and I want you to pay attention. Even in the areas outside of that PDS for tomorrow, if you are in a location that, if you see smoke tomorrow, it is a day to not mess around and you need to call 911. No doubt about that. And, you know, let's hope that nothing happens tomorrow. But it is a possibility. That's one of the roles of the Weather Service, is to help us be ready for high impact weather across southern Colorado, whether it's in the middle of winter, whether it's severe thunderstorms, or in this case, whether it is fire weather concerns. And again, we have this large scale system coming in from the west, and the atmospheric conditions with this help drive some small scale things down the road. So it's something to be aware of. It is something that we have been talking about for days on end now, and it is something that hopefully you are ready for. So Rick says, I better keep my plane in the hangar tomorrow. I mean, it's, you know, I don't know where you are, Rick, but if you are in the San Luis Valley, maybe that is a good idea to do. But, you know, I think 40-mile-an-hour wind or something like that, you know, planes can hang that out there. So I just wanted to make you aware here, and I wanted to get the insight from my friends at the Weather Service about it. Green Bay Barb says a particularly dangerous situation is pretty darn scary. If there's a fire tomorrow, yes. If we don't get any fires tomorrow, I think we'll be okay. There may be some blowing dust in the San Luis Valley. That is certainly a possibility tomorrow with how dry it has been in that area in particular. That is something that, you know, we'll keep an eye on across the Front Range. Obviously, visibility issues on I-25 historically have not been good as well. So, you know, it's something we'll keep an eye on. So, like I said, that's what Peaks to Plains weather is all about. It's why we're here. I will be here tomorrow monitoring the situation. If there is a fire somewhere, this is where it becomes neighbors helping neighbors. And so I want to take the opportunity right now to share this with you. This link, one of them is what my friends at the Weather Service just used to join. And you pop into my production system here, and I can bring you on the show. And so these links don't ever change. They are the same every day. And so what I recommend you do is put them in your phone as a contact. Put Peaks to Plains weather in your phone as a contact. And then you can use it. Like maybe you see smoke tomorrow. This happened during the 24 fire. It was the Saturday of the 24 fire. We were doing coverage and people were joining me from Security and from Fountain and from Canyon City, from Pueblo West. And we're saying, hey, here's the plume that I see. And we were talking about that. Sorry. So it's neighbors helping neighbors. Ooh, I drank that too fast. Ooh, that hurt. You ever done that? Ouch. So again, I'm relying on you to help, right? When things are hard or things are high impact, we're going to put our arms around each other and we are going to get through it. Of course, you know that Mary has joined me now. I was at her house today. We were getting her all set up. She did some testing and some posting of some things to YouTube that we've got set private. She's ready to go. She has some things to kind of hook up on the back end of things. It's going to look a lot like this. We'll be able to tag team these weather situations and get things done here. So that's it for me. Just wanted to pop on. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that. It was actually well timed today. I went to a press conference at the Pikes Peak Regional Office of Emergency Management. They have a new mapping tool that is integrated with peak alerts. So let's say that there was a fire somewhere in El Paso or Teller County tomorrow, and officials issued an evacuation order. That would be pushed through peak alerts. If you haven't signed up for peak alerts yet, take this opportunity. Go to peakalerts.org, sign up. You can put your house, your work, the kids' school in there. You can get notifications about that stuff. With those peak alert notifications will come a link to a map that uses GIS that has the actual evacuation in there. You can go in, you can zoom in, you can put addresses in there, see if those things are in or out of it. Super, super helpful. I have some of that data. I'll edit it this evening and I'll share that tomorrow morning on Mornings with Meister at 6:30. We'll give you an update about it and we'll get you all set for hopefully what is not an active Wednesday, but if it is, we will be ready. So that's going to be it for the live stream here. I'll see you tomorrow morning. Of course, we've got the weather information anytime you need it in the Peaks to Plains weather app. Download that if you haven't. Turn your location on so we can send you some push alerts if we need to, if things are getting a little bit squirrely out there. And you should have redundant ways to get information if the weather or other situations become life-threatening. And so please do me a favor and share Peaks to Plains weather with your friends. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow morning. This is Peaks to Plains weather, our weather together.